Right, hello. So we're looking at Before You Were Mine today, and this is a poem written by Duffy and told from her perspective, and she's talking to her mother on looking at a photograph of her mother from the past in which she was with a couple of friends having a really good time.
Yeah, so this is kind of a reflection on the experience of looking at that photo. So the first thing to look at is the title, Before You Were Mine. So the word mine there reflecting that possessive sense that the speaker, who in this case seems to be the poet Caroline Duffy, that sense that she has of possessiveness towards her mother, coming from the child's perspective of seeing the mother almost solely in terms of her relationship to herself, reflecting that kind of natural selfishness
that children have.
That children would have, exactly. Good.
Yeah. So the stanza starts off with, I'm 10 years away from the corner you laugh on with your pals, Maggie McKeaney and Jean Duff. The three of you bend from the waist, holding each other or your knees and shriek at the pavement. So clearly she's describing a moment where they're having a lot of fun, laughing so much that they're kind of doubled over. And you've got the enjambment in both of those sentences with the laugh on with and holding each, which kind of reflects just how the fun and the laughter is kind of ongoing. Yeah, they're just having a lot of fun.
Yeah. And then we've got your polka dot dress blows around your legs, Marilyn. So we've got, I guess, a metaphor there, a reference or allusion to Marilyn Monroe, who's considered kind of an icon, symbolic of glamour. So she sees her mother, or looking at this photo of her mother when her mother was younger, realising how glamorous and beautiful her mother was. So there's quite almost sense of admiration that she's almost idolising her mother, the way she looked in this photo.
Right, so the second stanza starts off with, I'm not here yet, the thought of me doesn't occur. So we've got, again, this self-centred approach. Yeah. So as Miss Davison was saying about how children kind of see themselves as the most important thing.
Which is natural, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, so she sees her mother in terms of her relationship to herself, even at the point when she as a child wasn't even born, exactly. Yeah. And then we've got in the ballroom with the 1,000 eyes, the fizzy movie tomorrows the right walk home could bring. So she's imagining her mother in the ballroom dancing, surrounded by people watching her, and it talks about the fizzy movie tomorrows. So the idea that there were kind of lots of potential, lots of different things that could happen in the mother's future, and the right walk home could bring. So maybe the idea of imagining meeting someone on the way home, and that bringing a whole different future. And the fact it's described as fizzy movie tomorrows, so the idea of something exciting but potentially not long-lasting or not realistic. But there was that potential, which obviously looking back isn't there anymore, but there was that potential in the moment when her mother was younger.
Okay. Yeah. And then we have, I knew you would dance like that. And that's kind of the tone that I hear it when I read it in my head. Like, I knew you would dance like that. It's almost, I don't know, I feel like she's admiring her mother, and I don't know, she's quite impressed with her almost in a sense. And then you've got the repetition of the title there. So we've got Before You Were Mine. And so again, they're just reminding us that she kind of feels possessive towards her mother. Yep.
And then your ma stands at the close with a hiding for the late one, you reckon it's worth it. So the mother is getting punished by her mother, the speaker's grandmother, for being late, and obviously sees it as worth it. So we've got this kind of a sense of reversal. So the daughter is thinking about her mother as a daughter being punished by a strict mother. So that sense of the kind of the cycle, almost like the cycle of life, that the daughter then becomes the mother, and the speaker is obviously enjoying the idea of her mother being punished by her own mother.
And quite naughty in a sense. This idea of being late and getting into trouble.
Yeah, daring.
She was the same.
So then we've got the decade ahead of my loud possessive yell was the best one, which, again, this sense of the daughter framing things in relation to herself, the child kind of thinking that the important thing is themselves. But yeah, this idea that she's describing the 10 years before she was born as the best one's A. So there's a sense of kind of wistfulness. It sounds quite sympathetic, I think, but the idea of the speaker being born and as a baby, interrupting the mother's life in that way. The loud possessive yell as well, the idea that having a child was quite a dramatic change in her life. And then I remember my hands in those high-heeled red shoes. So again, the speaker's framing it in terms of herself. She remembers playing with those shoes as a child or a baby. And then
we've got in those high-heeled red shoes, relics. So we're calling the high-heeled red shoes as relics. It's kind of suggesting that they're not used anymore, that they're old, but also something maybe precious, you think?
Yeah.
So something that, kind of fondly looked upon. And then we've got, and now your ghost clatters towards me over the square. So the idea of the ghost, so it's kind of quite difficult, I suppose, in the sense that is her mother, I don't know. I'm getting confused.
Yeah, well, I think relics and ghosts, the idea that a part,
this is in the past.
Yeah, it's in the past, and almost like this side of her mother is gone, is metaphorically dead.
But there's still a part of it that's still there.
Yeah, the spirit lives on in the photo, I suppose, and in the imagination. Yeah. And then, so ghost clatters toward me over George Square, so there's a sense of juxtaposition there, because you don't think of ghosts as clattering. Normally they're considered kind of silent. So this sense of clatters, being able to kind of hear it in her imagination. I think this idea of something jarring, a little bit like, for the daughter, it's maybe quite jarring to imagine her mother before she was a mother, before she was her mother, and something quite vivid.
Which links on to this idea of being clear as scent.
Yeah, so clear as scent again. The daughter picturing it happening, and clear as scent, the idea of something very vivid, but obviously scent isn't something tangible, so again something that exists in the imagination or in the memory, in the photograph possibly, but it's still vivid, although not real in a concrete sense.
And then under the tree with its lights, and whose small bites on your neck, sweetheart. So I quite like that idea that she's almost telling her mother off, or teasing her mother for these small kind of hickeys that she has on her neck. So from this passionate time she's had under the tree, which I suppose is quite funny to think of your mother kind of doing that kind of thing. So it is. Yeah,
and the daughter always taking on the role of the mother, kind of questioning the daughter and enjoying that. Yeah, and again the idea that she's enjoying thinking about her mother.
Yeah, it's fun.
Being daring and a bit risque.
Yeah. Okay, so the final stanza starts off with cha-cha-cha. So obviously referring to the dance move. So maybe at this point we're kind of imagining that the mother is making her way home and dancing on the way home. She's having so much fun. So again, this kind of carefree, just loving life.
Yeah, and then we seem to have kind of a shift, although it's within the same sentence, but it seems to shift kind of forwards in time to the speaker as maybe a young child. You teach me the steps on the way home from Mass. So that's referring to the past, but saying, kind of linking the memory of learning those steps from her mother to what her mother would have done as a young woman. And then the way home from Mass as well, that sense of juxtaposition, so cha-cha-cha and Mass.
So strict and...
So again, that contrast between her mother as she knew her as her mother, and her mother as kind of the rebellious, or slightly rebellious anyway, daring daughter.
Yeah, it's quite an endearing image, really. But, and then it seems like a good relationship that's being presented.
You teach me as well, so the connection between her mother and the daughter, that there is a connection to that past through what her mother taught her.
Yeah, so I like to think it's not overly sad that her mother's not this way anymore. She still has fun. It's just in a very different way. With stamping stars from the wrong pavement. Wrong pavement. I don't know.
I don't really know what that means, but there's that sense of daring again, I think.
Yeah. So it's you're not supposed to be dancing there, or interesting. Even then, I wanted the bald girl winking in Portobello somewhere in Scotland before I was born.
Yeah, so again, we've got the enjambment there. Even then, I wanted. So maybe that sense of separation that she wants to have experienced her mother as this kind of fun young woman, but she can't fully experience it. But maybe the sense that learning the cha-cha-cha from her mother made her want to see more of that side of her. And then, so her mother described as the bald girl winking in Portobello somewhere in Scotland. So that's somewhere, again, quite vague, that it's something that lives on, but it's not concrete anymore. It's just a memory or an idea. And then again, before I was born, so the child bringing it back to themselves.
Yeah, it's most important. Yeah. But we kind of finish off with a more positive note. Yeah. That glamorous love lasts where you sparkle and waltz and laugh before you were mine. So there is, it's not completely gone. Like we kind of said earlier, there's a ghost of that. There is still some of this glamorous Marilyn Monroe type woman. And she does kind of sparkle and waltz and laugh still.
And the fact that, the whole poem is described in this present tense as well makes it seem like it is something that lives on, the spirit of it lives on. But again, the ending, before you were mine, so that kind of constant throughout the poem of bringing it back to herself, which again is a natural thing for a child to do, to frame their parents in terms of themselves. I guess maybe the only other thing to talk about is potentially the use of caesura. Yeah. So there's quite a lot of kind of short sentences or a line with one sentence. Finishing in the middle.
And the enjoyment, it's not kind of it's not structured strictly.
No, apart from the even stanza lengths, which there's 5 lines in every stanza. There's no rhyme scheme.
Maybe her mother's kind of the carefree.
Oh yeah.
Maybe that's.
Yeah, I could see that, like the contrast between like the strict mother and the kind of daring daughter. So the lines are consistent in terms of length, so something strict, but then there's no rhyme scheme, so there's that sense of kind of freedom and
not following the rules, and so maybe that's
I like that.
I quite like that.
Yeah. Right, but then the caesura, what would we say about that?
I'd say that just fits in kind of with the
sense of it being kind of jarring.
Yeah, it's not nice and even, and it's the kind of rhythm is it's kind of it's all over
like cha-cha-cha exclamation mark. It's quite
just comes out of nowhere.
Yeah,
almost. It's quite
lively. I think.
Yeah, very lively.
Like her mother was.
Yeah.
Good. Okay.